broadcasting from the Unshackled studios in Melbourne. This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's WilmsFront Snapshot news show on this Easter Monday, April 6, 2026. We are live on the WilmsFront YouTube channel. Say hello if you are watching, because remember last week there was an error with YouTube where I didn't know how many people were watching, but I knew that many people were because the chat was very lively. It is 8 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria. Now, the show will be starting at this earlier time slot from now on. It's just a coincidence that it coincides with the end of daylight savings in Victoria, New South Wales, Tasmania, South Australia, and New Zealand, though in the non-daylight saving states such as Western Australia, Northern Territory, and Queensland, I'm broadcasting at exactly the same time. Down here, we got a 25-hour Easter Sunday. It was a very long day, but of course the sun comes right down at 6 o'clock.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net.
Now, before we had our Easter long weekend, the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, gave a national address at 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening, and it was broadcast on all the television and radio stations, though thankfully he didn't take over the Australian internet and broadcast automatically through our smart devices, though I think that's coming later in the year when they're testing the national emergency system where we'll all get a text message. So watch this space. Now, when the news came through at midday that the Prime Minister was going to be doing a national address, which historically have been during times of war, and also the last one was Scott Morrison at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, which obviously Scott Morrison wanted to reassure Australians that COVID was nothing to be too concerned about. Well, he was actually right at the beginning, though of course that ushered in 2 years of lockdown restrictions. So they tend to, the only non-wartime disaster time address from the Prime Minister was Paul Keating post the Mabo High Court decision, trying to reassure Australians that his native title plan was the right thing to do. Of course, over half the landmass has been given away to Aboriginal corporations. So whenever our leaders try to reassure us of something, Australians tend to assume the worst. And the Wednesday was when the fuel excise cut had taken effect. So 26 cents off. I think my local survey went down 30 cents. So I filled up, and so did a lot of other Australians. And when they heard the Prime Minister was going to address the nation later today, would we be moving to level 3 of the new National Fuel Security Plan, which had only been announced on the Monday? Was he going to be announcing fuel rationing? But his office put out feelers to the messages to the media to say that he's not going to announce any drastic restrictions, that it's just going to try and calm people, reassure people, while at the same time telling them to only fill up what you need, no more think of others, and maybe carpool or take public transport. So, and he said the next few months will be incredibly tough. So basically saying it could all go to shit, because he and Chris Bowen have been scrambling on the phone to get more shipments, tankers of oil to our two remaining refineries, and also trying to do deals with Japan, South Korea, Singapore and Malaysia to keep the refined oil flowing. There's some tankers coming from North America and the United States. So Albo's doing what Trump said, buy the oil from us. But as we're told by Chris Bowen today, that we've got enough supply until enough supply secured, so it's not here yet, obviously, until early May. Of course, contracts, they can be cancelled by governments halfway across the world, and also they can also be held up, and there can be more choking of supply. So, and we also heard from Chris Bowen that we're down to 29 days of diesel, so still at 39 for a unleaded 91, 30 days for jet fuel. And now the Prime Minister's address only went for 3 minutes. And so I don't know if there were viewing parties around the family room, the kitchen table, leaning forward. It's hooked on the Prime Minister's every word. But at the end, most of Australia was saying, is that all? That's 3 minutes we'll never get back. What on earth was the point of that? Well, the next day, Anthony Albanese, he gave I should mention that the national address wasn't even live. It had been pre-recorded earlier that afternoon. So he could have just posted it as a message on social media. But he had a National Press Club address in Canberra the next day, which is a 30-minute live speech and 30-minute questions from journalists. And in response to a question from Mark Riley about why'd you do it, the national address, you said you wanted to calm people, but instead there was a lot of panic. This was Albanese's answer.
One of the things that's occurred in recent weeks during this global crisis is the amount of misinformation that's out there. People now, with due respect to Channel 7 News or anything else, used to get their information from 7 or 9 or ABC or 10 or SBS. They'd get their information there and there would be a consistency about it. Now, they're getting it on their device. It's telling them all sorts of things that aren't true. The conspiracy theories that are out there, which are allowed, which propagate, which we can't do anything about. And, we can't wish the world was back so that everyone got their news at 6 p.m. or 5 or 7 when they watch TV at night, or they all read their paper that they held in their hands.
Yes, Anthony Albanese much preferred it when it was 5 media corporations controlling the message, which, of course, the political media complex. So, and we saw this on display during COVID, where the mainstream media, they campaigned for the lockdown. The governments, they put out the lockdown messages in advance to the media. Only mainstream media were allowed at the COVID media conferences and the media wanted the lockdown so people would be forced to watch their fear porn 24/7. So the political media complex, it's I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back, quid pro quo. So the politicians is like, we'll give you the stories to put out to the public what we want them to hear. You get the exclusives from us. And now he talks about conspiracy theories and misinformation. Well, there's a lack of information from the Albanese government about what fuel supplies tankers are locked in, what's here in Australia. We haven't got that national fuel dashboard. We just get the daily press conference from Chris Bowen, who tells us the petrol station's out of diesel or completely out of any fuels. So, of course, when there's an information vacuum, and of course, the Albanese government, they don't know when the US, Israel versus Iran war is going to end. So, of course, there's lots of speculation and commentary from energy experts, military experts, geopolitical experts. So is Anthony Albanese saying he doesn't like those because it will mean that people don't trust the government message? What Albanese is really scared of is that if people, we're going to be in a recession. I think we already are in a recession, but if people, they already are cutting back, and there were people cutting back this Easter long weekend, that's going to slowly kill a lot of businesses, beginning with a lot of retail hospitality, potentially going to affect the construction industry as well. And of course, the big one is the food supply, because 20% of the world's fertilizer is also blocked in the Strait of Hormuz. So Anthony Albanese, he doesn't like to not be in control of the message. And this is a big reason why he banned under 16s from social media, is because, well, he wanted his mates in the teachers union to control what young people, what information they consume. He always used to say, back in my day, we used to talk to people. And back in his day, there weren't people like Danger Dan on the internet dubbing his voice over every press conference to take the piss out of him, which is what he did with the national address. The nickname he gives Albo is Magoo.
Now, I know everybody's going to be worried about whether they can afford to tow their caravan over Easter, so I've instructed all of my cabinet to stay home over the holidays and not take private jets to watch the soccer or a tennis match. And I've also instructed Annika Wells to cancel her husband's ski trips in the Swiss Alps. All Australians can also rest assured that I had lots of meetings with Jim Chalmers last week, and I gave him a new calculator, which hasn't appeared to have actually helped him because he's a retarded, thick-headed bastard.
Yes, Anthony Albanese would be not amused, and we remember that he was not amused with people sticking his head on other people's bodies, and was glad that social media took down those memes of him. Now, over in Western Australia, Premier Roger Cook enacted emergency powers under the Fuel, Energy and Power Resources Act. So this is going to compel energy suppliers to provide the data and information to government to ensure fuel is sent where it is most needed. So although you hear state of emergency, it's just about we're just compelling the information. That's what Roger Cook, he he sold it as. So even though it's called emergency powers, don't think that this is a dire emergency. Now down in Victoria, we have Jacinta Allen, our Premier, spruiking the free public transport for the months of April. I took advantage of it on Good Friday. I went to the city and I also went to the soccer on Saturday night, Melbourne City versus Western Sydney Wanderers. I noticed at Amy Park they converted one of the women's bathrooms into a all-gender toilet. So I wondered, what's this bathroom with just a toilet picture on it? And then it said all-gender restroom. And I was like, oh. Well, at the soccer, there does tend to be more of a more males there than females, though I don't think there's many non-binaries that are there. Some fun facts. All of the security guards seem to be Somali. I don't know if it's why that was the case. And also, they're not very big drinkers, soccer fans, not like the AFL fans who go for a beer multiple times a quarter, in my experience. So they only open up about one bar. So soccer fans in Australia, well, probably because they come from other cultures and religions that are not big on alcohol. I'm digressing here. Now, obviously, it costs. I think it's costing around $70 million just for this month of free public transport for Victoria. But hey, we're in, was it 178 billion in debt? What's another million here and there? And she also later in the week announced a $2.7 million in food relief packages to various food charities, which includes Oz Harvest, Second Bite, Fair Share, and of course the Victorian Sikh Guardwood Council, Sikh Volunteers Australia, the Gurdwara Council of Victoria, and Australian Sikh support. I didn't know they had so many different groups, the Sikhs in this regard. Now, she decided to turn on the water walks, probably had some onions it's sprayed into her eyes so she could cry on cue, talking about how hard it is for families going hungry.
There's a single mum going without a meal. There's a tradie who is going without a meal. This hurts. And yes, you'll all know that comment that it makes me emotional. It does. The impact of Donald Trump's war in the Middle East. This is a war, Donald Trump's war in the Middle East.
Yes, Jacinta Allen, she posted today about Donald Trump's war pushing up fuel prices at home. Here's three ways we're putting them back down. Now, there's the Servo Saver app. I haven't used it. I think I'm pretty good at guessing in my area which is the cheapest. And also, this was announced by Anthony Albanese the next day at the National Press Club that the states and territories had agreed to pass on extra GST revenue from increased petrol prices back to fuel those needing to fill up. So apparently it works out to 32 cents per litre. So it's roughly around where I live. It's about $2.23 for unleaded 91 and $3.05 for diesel. And of course, mentioning free public transport, which I think that Jacinta Allen's husband, Yorick Piper, might be using in Bendigo. Remember, I think he got his license suspended for 3 months for failing a breathalyzer the next day after Christmas drinks when he went into the back of a car in Ballarat. It also should be noted that the Nationals candidate for Bendigo at the federal election. So what was his name again? Andrew Lethian, a popular publican, almost knocked off the Labor member for Bendigo, Lisa Chesters, at the federal election, is going to run against Jacinta Allen. She will definitely, I think, lose her seat at the state election, even though Labor could retain government, which means it would be Ben Carroll who would be the premier. Now, a interesting fact about the Aboriginal voice that she's just passed. There's going to be elections for it where Lydia Thorpe's son is going to run. So the Thorpe family gravy train continues, it seems. So the Aboriginal voice will have to approve every state law that passes the state parliament. Now, of course, that can easily be revoked by the treaty bill being repealed. It's not like it's in the state constitution like the voice referendum bill was. Now, just staying on the Albanese government before I wrap up domestically, he is going to use the fuel crisis as never let a crisis go to waste, to be bold on tax reform, which is just code word for increased taxes. So he is going to allow Jim Chalmers to limit negative gearing, to one a home for people who it's going to be grandfathered the existing negatively geared properties, and he's going to also reduce the 50% capital gains tax. So when you sell an asset at a profit, you're only taxed in 50% because a lot of it is due to just asset inflation, not really actually a profit. And he also, Anthony Albanese, announced it can only be described as a half-assed sports gambling reform. So it's going to be banned in sports stadiums and on players' jerseys. Players and celebrities not allowed to be in sporting bet ads, but he's only banning sports ads during broadcast from 6 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. So we'll still get ghastly sports bet and whatever else ads during a lot of live sport. Now, obviously, I'm a libertarian, so I don't like bans, but given how much of a moral argument the Albanese government and the previous governments have made for increasing tobacco excise for people's health. It's very timid when it comes to the harm from gambling, because, or maybe they don't want to upset the free-to-air TV networks who rely on diminishing pool of advertising to stay profitable. Again, the political media complex, and also, well, the political sport complex. So they don't want to disadvantage the sporting codes as well. Although the sporting codes also don't want to disappoint the politicians. That's why there was this apology from Foxtel and Gary Lyon during a hot mic moment when Jared Waitley asked, who's Tanya Plibersek the minister for, because she was pictured with the Sydney Swan, and he said bullshit. And so there was a grovelling apology from Fox Footy and Gary Lyon. Slagging off our politicians is a great Australian tradition. That's why Albo's booed at the footy whenever he's there. Maybe the footballers, maybe they secretly can't stand Alba and Plibersek at the sporting games, but they just tolerate them there because they like that federal government money there. So, and of course we have the federal and Tasmanian governments paying for the sporting stadiums, the Hobart Macquarie Point Stadium. So again, another two industries that are in cahoots.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net.
Now, moving on to Trump's Iran plan. If he had a plan, nobody knows what it is. Now, of course, Donald Trump gave an address to the nation from the Oval Office about, it was about, if I work it out correctly, about 17 hours after Anthony Albanese's. And again, it was basically the same thing that he's been saying to reporters, that I will be leaving very soon. We've almost achieved our goals. We're going to do a couple of weeks more bombing, send them back to the Stone Age. And when Mark Levin said it was a perfect speech, he knew it was a bad one. The price of oil shot up to over $110. Now, he also said he doesn't care about reopening the Strait of Hormuz, said to other countries, get your own oil, buy it from us. Well, the French got a cargo ship through the Strait of Hormuz, but then you had Mark Levin say Vichy France. So Trump said, you organize your own way through the Strait of Hormuz, and France did, and then they got criticized for it. So you do what Trump says and you get bagged for it. And now traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, apparently it's picking up. It's like when, if anyone's seen that Simpsons episode with the alcohol prohibition, there's all this excitement when a bowling ball full of beer arrives at Moe's. It's like this every time a ship goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, a lot of those ships are going to China and India. If you want to see a graph of before the US and Israeli led war on Iran, so that was regular traffic until late February, and then falls off a cliff, and then you're just seeing it peter to about like 10% of what it was pre-war. So we had the Strait of Hormuz open before the US Israel war. And now Trump, even though he said he was prepared to leave without opening the Strait of Hormuz, he yet again threatened to blow up Iran's energy infrastructure, though in a Truth Social post, much more profanely, Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise to be Allah, President Donald J. Trump. Now, plunging a country of 90 million people into darkness, many have described if that were to occur as a war crime. You even had Ann Coulter say that it would constitute a war crime. And if you're trying to liberate the people of Iran, plunging them into darkness, that's not very liberating. And of course, in this mutually assured destruction, Iran said that they would retaliate by targeting the Gulf states' desalination plants, which would mean that's how they get their drinking water, the Gulf states. So there would be mass dehydration to start with, but there would be a humanitarian disaster in those Gulf states. Now, it's interesting still, the Gulf states, they want Israel and the US to finish the job. They're all united against Iran. I mean, there's been a proxy war between the Arab Sunni Gulf states led by Saudi Arabia and the Shia Persian Iranian theocracy for almost 50 years since the Iranian Revolution. So it would be of great benefit to them if the Iranian regime would fall, but there's no indications of that. I mean, sure, US and Israel continue to assassinate Iran's leadership, whether it be in the military, the government. It's hard to tell who's in charge. Is it the clerics? Is it the Revolutionary Guard? Is it the civilian government? We don't know if the new supreme leader is dead or alive, but now we're hearing because Pakistan was mediating talks between the US and Iran. Now we're hearing news from Reuters and Axios discussing the possibility of a 45-day ceasefire. I should just check my news feed to see if there is any breaking news. No, there is not. Now, we're getting to the point now where nobody believes Trump when he says we're close to a deal, because Iran just comes back and says, no, we are not accepting any deal. We are not talking about a deal. We're not going to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, there's a bill before the Iranian parliament. Again, that can be vetoed by the clerics. So that would have transit fees for the Strait of Hormuz in Royale, the Iranian currency, a ban on US and Israeli ships sailing through, and restrictions on sanctioning nations, i.e. nations that sanction Iran. Now, of course, we have the neocons and the MAGA cultists say that there's so many people rooting for Iran, which, of course, is just recycled war on terror slogans. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. The reason I'm anti-war is because it leads to death, destruction, and suffering. And we are all, the whole world is suffering with this oil crisis, particularly in poorer nations in Southeast Asia, such as Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar. Like, you think that it's really tough, the fuel costs here. Those countries which they rely on petrol and diesel way more than us. There's going to be a humanitarian disaster in lots of countries. Now, there was a lot of the world on edge when Iran shot down a two-seat F-15 Strike Eagle fighter over Kurdistan province in southwestern Iran. One was rescued shortly after. One who was wounded, he had to hide in the mountains, and then there was a rescue operation where they lost another aircraft. But they, as Trump said, they got him, which sounds weird because that's what the US said when they captured Saddam. Maybe we found him, or that he's alive. So I am pleased that he wasn't captured. That would have been a absolute disaster. He would have been paraded in the streets of Tehran as a prisoner of war, like the U.S. embassy hostages were in '79. And now, of course, we don't know. Trump is looking increasingly unhinged. He could be at Biden senility levels. He is a lost cause, in my opinion. He doesn't want to lose this war, so he could authorize a ground invasion or the capture of Karg Island, which is Iran's primary export hub. We also just had Ukraine hit a Russian oil refinery, which was going to flow to India and also China. So that war's still going on, with oil energy infrastructure destroyed there as well, which the whole world suffers, including Australia, because we get some of that refined Russian oil through India. And so it's a loophole in our sanctions, which I think a government is happy to keep in place. Now, Trump he's surrounded by neocons now. They did a successful capture operation. I mean, you have him constantly praising Mark Levin on Truth Social, and then posting Douglas Murray's latest New York Post article when, of course, he defends this moral war. And of course, he says that if Israel falls, the whole West falls, even though the West existed for centuries before the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. And then you have Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, who seems to be on a mission to basically prove how tough he is. After when he was nominated, he was mocked as a Fox and Friends host who had a drinking problem and had an affair. And so he is wanting to throw his weight around. It's in huge ways. He fired the Army Chief of Staff, Randy George, who he would claim that's a Biden appointment in 2023. He actually, when he was asked by Congress, he lost track of how many generals he's fired. And this is him talking about how the US negotiates. So this is how Hegseth, how unhinged he is.
The air campaign that we've conducted, that Israel's conducted alongside us, was one for the history books, truly. And it's because we have a president of the United States that when he sends his warfighters out to fight, he unties their hands to actually go out and close with and destroy the enemy as viciously as possible from moment one. And that's why we see ourselves as part of this negotiation as well. We negotiate with bombs. You have a choice as we loiter over the top of Tehran, as the president talked about your future. The president has made it clear that you will not have a nuclear weapon. The War Department agrees. Our job is to ensure that. And so we're keeping our hand on that throttle as long as hard as is necessary to ensure the interests of the United States of America are achieved on that battlefield. This is the air campaign that we've conducted, that Israel's conducted alongside us, was one for the history books, truly. And it's because we have a president of the United
So much for the peace ticket. Now, Trump keeps extending the deadline for when he's going to obliterate the Iranian energy infrastructure. And this, of course, is a classic taco Trump always chickens out. So he always claims there's new negotiations, and so he delays his power plant day. So, but again, this is why there is so much uncertainty, because, well, it'd all be great if Trump didn't start this war, and Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, didn't talk him into it. Andrew Bolt had a special program about how the US is actually winning. It's like just 2 weeks to flatten the Iranian regime. It's going to be another 2 weeks. And then you had Michael Kroger say that the Vietnam War lasted 20 years, World War II lasted 6 years. So what? There's going to be a 20-year war, and we're going to have this continued lack of supply of oil. Is that the argument that Michael Kroger is trying to make? Because failed wars, the Vietnam War was a failed war, lasted 20 years. So did the war in Afghanistan. So he was referencing a failed war as wars last this long. So, and of course, there is still a lot of environmental issues in Vietnam, Cambodia, Agent Orange, because of what the US did. So the consequences of long wars can last decades longer. And you have Mark Levin saying that the US should have even more US bases presence in the Middle East as well. He's basically has a fantasy session every time he has his, what's it called, a Life, Liberty and Levin on Fox News. Now, the war is already unpopular in the United States. Trump's approval ratings on key issues continue to decline, though he's still got 100% support of remaining Trump supporters. He's always keen to trumpet that poll. But it seems that he wants to keep doubling down on this, what I call that Donald W. Trump, a war machine. Because you have to remember that George W. Bush also campaigned as a non-interventionist. So they all lie, saying they're the peace president. Obama did as well. They all lie. So we should never trust a pro-peace candidate again, unless they're a member of the Paul family. So this was what Trump said, that he wanted a budget for next year. Our military budget for the year 2027 should not be $1 trillion, but rather $1.5 trillion to build a dream military that will keep us safe and secure. So he claimed, Trump, to reporters that his bombing of Iran is America first because he saved them from a nuclear attack by Iran. So he protected them from a threat they didn't even know existed. Now, I heard Peter Jennings on Sky News tonight saying, "Oh no, the ceasefire, it shouldn't take place because Iran can rebuild." It's funny how Iran, it's always argued that even though they've been obliterated, they can always just build a new nuclear weapon in another 6 months. They've been building nuclear weapons in the next 6 months for 20, 30 years, well, according to Benjamin Netanyahu. Then, of course, you had Trump's, you would call him a war spokesman, Senator Lindsey Graham. He's never been rebuked by the administration, and he also praised Trump's address. So while Americans are paying $3-4 a gallon for gas, as they call it, Lindsey Graham was stopping in at Disney World, and so he's got in this photo here one of these bubble toy things. Now, Lindsey Graham is 70 years old. He's never married, doesn't have children, yet he's in Disney World acting like a 7-year-old. So a lot of people, and I saw Matt Walsh say this is weird. And I think it is sus if there's a politician who is in their advanced years and has never married and had children. His fellow South Carolina Senator Tim Scott is the same. They like their bachelors in South Carolina for the Senate. I do believe that it is a legitimate double standard because obviously when it comes to female politicians and leaders who are never married, never had children, there is a belief amongst voters, well, they sacrificed a family for their career. And so Gladys Berejiklian, she was incredibly popular, even though she never married and never had children. Anastasia Palaszczuk, Premier of Queensland, won 3 elections, never married, never had children. But when a man's the politician, it's the wife at home who raises the children. Like, they can be a full-time politician, and the wife basically raises the children. So he doesn't really have an excuse there. Now, he said that he was just stopping in on Space Mountain at Disney World's Magic Kingdom. He'd been in some very important meetings for the administration in Orlando, Florida. So, yeah, just stopping by. Now, it also should be noted that TMZ is now owned by Rupert Murdoch's Fox Corporation. It used to be owned by Warner Brothers. They've been getting a lot of good scoops. Well, they do pay for tips, but who wouldn't want to see a photo of Lindsey Graham with a Disney a bubble toy there? That's just absolutely both hilarious and weird at the same time. And then let's go into even more weird, and that is Kirsty Noem's husband, who has a Byron, who has been revealed to have a secret double life as a cross-dresser, has a bimbofication fetish, like Kayla Lemieux, that Canadian shopkeeper. So this is him in the fake prosthetic breasts. They are balloons. So he was paying, I don't know if he was paying biological women or other or biological men who dress up like Kayla Lemieux, paid them $25,000. Now, according to Kirsty Noem, she is reportedly devastated. She apparently had no knowledge of her husband's secret fetish. She was having an affair while she was a Department of Homeland Security secretary with one of her subordinates, Corey Lewandowski, who that name might ring a bell because was one of the original Trump advisors in the 2016 campaign. He's also married. Now, did she know? And this is why she had the affair. She wanted to be with a real man. And now the fact that he was living this double life, she's the Department of Homeland Security Secretary. She could be subject to blackmail. But according to Laura Loomer, this was an open secret in the administration. Well, Laura Loomer's a journalist, so why didn't she report it? This would have been an excellent Loomer scoop. Sounds like she's running cover for the administration. So, look, when it comes to these things, my position is the same as Bob Catter. People are entitled to their sexual proclivities. Let 1,000 blossoms bloom. But yes, this is highly, highly embarrassing to Kirsty Noem and the whole Noem family. I mean, they were childhood sweethearts, their grandparents. So he would have absolutely have embarrassed his children and grandchildren. So, and also, like, if she didn't know, it's also a massive betrayal, a breaking of trust as well. So if he did keep it from her, that is a huge moral failing on his part as well. And now we also had was she fired or did she resign? Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. So this is what Trump posted on Truth Social. Pam Bondi is a great American patriot and loyal friend who faithfully served as my Attorney General over the past year. Pam did a tremendous job on overseeing massive crackdown in crime across the country, murders plummeting to the lowest level since 1900. We love Pam, and she'll be transitioning to a much needed and important new job in the private sector to be announced at a date in the near future. And Deputy Attorney General and a very talented and respected legal mind, Todd Blanche, will step in to serve as acting Attorney General. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So if you thought Pam Bondi was bad on Epstein, I remember Pam Bondi said the client list is on my desk and then there is no client list. She gave away those binders and then you had Trump saying it was a hoax. Todd Blanche is even worse. And then you have the Dan Bongino show, the ex-deputy director of the FBI, who's basically just a shill for the administration. Now, he is just a shell of his former self. I also should point out that Kirsty Noem, she is actually still employed in the Trump administration. She's the special envoy for the Americas. So it's basically a demotion being shifted sideways. So we don't, there apparently is a short list on who will be Trump's new nominee to be Attorney General. Judge Jeanine Pirro, who's now a U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., said, if you take a gun to D.C., you're going to jail. She could be Attorney General. Yes, the federal intervention in D.C. Was successful in reducing violent crime, but nobody remembers all this stuff anymore because Trump has basically wound back ICE. You don't hear about the deportations anymore, decided just to go full with the neocons. And I know that Polymarket, it can be manipulated and it's not it's just a betting market. The Democrats are now favourite to win Congress and the Senate in the November midterms. So there is a long way to go. So, yes, there is a lot to despair about in the Trump administration at the moment, but apparently it's going to be all of the pod, even though the podcasters apparently have no influence, like Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, it's going to be all their fault if the Republicans lose Congress. So they have no influence, but they have enough influence that they lose the Congress. Okay, I think I get it.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net.
And now to some good news. Well, it depends on how you look at it. Now, after last week, when Moira Deeming was defeated in a Liberal Party pre-selection for the number one position in the Western Metropolitan Region Upper House to Dinesh Gorsetti, he was disendorsed the next day after it was revealed he wrote a character reference for Kashyap Patel, who in 2021 groomed and sexually assaulted a 15-year-old girl. He was convicted in 2024. So Gorsetti said that, it was just in his character letter statement said, it was likely just a one-off because of lockdown, and so this is why I'm writing in this reference. Well, the fallout has also led to the mayor of the city of Wyndham, Preet Singh, standing down, and there's pressure on him to resign as a councillor for the city. He wrote also a reference for Kashyap Patel. He is in the same faction. It's called the moderate faction. They're apparently part of the same moderate faction in the Liberal Party. Most people would see it as more of an Indian faction. And so, yes, this is claimed another aspiring Liberal politician. Now, there was because the state president for the Liberal Party, Philip Davis, said that there was going to be a rerun of the pre-selection. Moira Deeming's main rival, or the Indian who was drafted to run against her, so his name was Bobby Larker. This is a photo of him. It looks like the Indian Milky Bar Kid. Now, his nomination wasn't accepted because he didn't have the two Liberal Party referees in time. So his pre-selection form was not accepted. So Moira was the only candidate remaining, and she sat down with Peter Credlin on a Friday night to say, although it hadn't been finalised, the pre-selection, she was staying in the Liberal Party. She'd been battered and bruised, but she was determined to throw out the Allen Labor government. Now, the reason I say that some people didn't see this as good news because they hoped that Moira would go and join One Nation. I know that the man who recruited her to the Liberal Party is now in One Nation, Bernie Finn, would have hoped that she would come over to One Nation. Now, she put out a statement on her social media. I thank all of those who stood with me, including Jess Wilson, and I relished the opportunity to expose and wrote out Labor's callous betrayal of hardworking families, especially in the West. I will never let them be taken for granted again. And when we win, I will work tirelessly to restore good governance to this great state of Victoria.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net.
Now over to some good and bad news. Well, Joel Davis, after 133 days basically in solitary confinement for his Telegram post about a rhetorical, what he urged his followers to do on X rhetorically to the member for Wentworth, Allegra Spender. He was charged with using a carriage service to menace and harass, and he was denied bail because he was already on bail for wearing that belt buckle that was deemed to be a Nazi symbol after Australia Day in South Australia at the beginning of 2026. So he spent 133 days in solitary confinement because Bondi massacre was used as an excuse to keep denying him bail. Now, Justice Natalie Adams, who granted him bail, found he did not present an unacceptable risk to the community and ordered his release from Long Bay Correctional Complex. Now, he has almost 20 bail conditions, including that Joel not be in the possession of a smartphone. So it sounds like he's been subjected to an under 16 social media ban. Not use social media or encrypted devices or apps, report to police 3 times a week, and not contact or approach the Allegra Spender or New South Wales Liberal leader Kelly Sloan, who the court heard he had also allegedly posted about on his Telegram. He's also banned from entering the MP's electorates of Wentworth and Vaucluse. He was living in Bondi when he was arrested and going within 100 metres of their office, and must take part in a program run by the New South Wales Court Chaplains Association. Of course, when he was in custody, there was more charges that were thrown at him. In the meantime, going through episodes of the Joel, Blair and Tom show and finding more charges. So Justice Adams noted that Mr. Davis had spent more than 4 months in onerous and unusual conditions in custody, and he only had 1 visit since his arrest. Mr. Davis' barrister Sebastian D. Brennan, assisted by Sheena Shawn for Paddling Lawyers, told the court it was his client's first time in custody, missed the birth of his child, and that his experience behind bars had been solitary and made him examine how he expressed his views. So Joel, when he's allowed to speak again, it might be a bit more diplomatic, though there would be no evidence that he would be reformed. And I doubt that also Jimone Roberts, who has been sentenced is now in prison for his spray to those grandmothers for refugees. I doubt he is going to be reformed, just like Sam Malaya was not reformed after he was imprisoned for printing nationalist stickers. So unless you're going to Clockwork Orange somebody while they're in prison to not necessarily change their personality, but carry out some sort of aversion therapy. And I don't know if that's what they're going to try and do to Alex Belfield now, who's back in prison to serve the full 5 years and 26 weeks for so-called stalking of Jeremy Vine and other BBC people. Even though he never went near them, he just criticized them and said mean things about them on his Voice and Reason YouTube channel. So even though he tried to comply with the conditions, it's called release on license. That's what they call parole over there. even though he did try to comply, they kept changing it. The parole, it seems his parole officer, kept trying to change things. And he originally released videos, but because he didn't really show remorse in it, he was banned from posting any content. But still, he was sent back to prison. So clearly, they want to try and break him all over again, Alex Belfield. Because remember, Britain, they like to protect the powerful, particularly those at the BBC. Although there has been a BBC radio presenter who's been cut loose because of historical allegations. Scott Mills, who allegedly was accused of committing a serious sexual offence against a boy under the age of 16, and just aired on Channel 5 in the UK is Power, the Downfall of Hugh Edwards, played by Martin Clunes, who plays Doc Martin. That's his most famous role. And Hugh Edwards is very unhappy about this docudrama, and is going to tell his side of the story. Yeah, there's the pedo perv is claiming, what about my side of the story? Oh, please.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net.
That brings us to the end of another WilmsFront Snapshot news program. Thank you so much for joining me at this earlier time, and thank you for all of your contributions in the chat all throughout the evening. Obviously, with the streaming software, I can't put it on the screen anymore, but I keep abreast of it, particularly when videos are playing. So thank you for all your contributions. If you'd like to support the work of the Unshackled, you consider taking out, if your budget allows it, a premium membership over at the unshackled.net/membership. Dawn is upset that I mispronounced Sam Malia. That's how you pronounce it, not Malaya. Malia, of course, is the husband of Laura Towler, who's essentially a co-leader of Patriotic Alternative with Mark Collette. You can also support us over at Substack, so the unshackled.substack.com/subscribe. I still haven't gone to record some more reports from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft. That will be hopefully this week. I've still got a full tank of petrol, so I'll be able to make it to his place. Richard, of course, is not giving up driving, and neither is his mate and Sam Newman, who is back on his You Cannot Be Serious podcast. Well, Sam can afford to fill up with all of his cars. He's recovered from his stroke and is even binging on Easter chocolate as well. So it's great to see Sam has recovered, and there's no, I appear fortnightly on Reality Check Radio's breakfast program with Paul Brennan, so I'll be appearing next week. Who knows what the situation will be then. In fact, I should just check before we finally wrap up if there's any breaking news with regard. No, there is nothing new. So we should know by Tuesday whether there's another taco or whether there is actually a ceasefire. But yeah, I don't think even the markets believe Trump anymore. I don't think even they are manipulated what Trump says before the markets open on a Monday. So if I had a prediction, it would just be Trump would just kick everything down the road again. But yeah, according to Alba and Chris Bowen, we're getting some of America's oil. So we should, although we'll be still paying a lot more, we'll be paying a lot more down the road when it comes to the cost of everything. But we won't be at Mad Max when the whole country is basically dry. So please take care of yourselves. Look out for each other and try not to do too much doom scrolling and doom posting because that really doesn't help anybody. Get your news from me, your rational news from me. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to WilmsFront. Visit timwilms.com to view the archive of episodes, and keep visiting the Unshackled.net to view all our shows, and to keep up with the latest real news and analysis.